Hey everybody, Peach here, and welcome to another episode of the Home Gym Remodel Series. Now today's project is Barbell Rack. All right, step number one, we need to determine the length and we need to determine the placement of our hooks. Now with regard to length, you can go all the way from the ceiling all the way down to the floor if you want. And for me, that distance is 82 inches. But I'm gonna back that off by 2 inches because I don't need mine going all the way up to the ceiling. So I'm making mine 80 inches long, which means the bottom of my rack is actually going to sit on the floor. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to take some pressure off the wall studs. You don't have to do that, but I am. Now, with regard to the placement of hooks, you can hang your barbells by the shaft or by the sleeves. So if you're going to hang by the shaft or the sleeves, well, how do you figure that out? So what you're going to do is take out your stud finder and mark the studs in your wall, which I've already done. In fact, these 5 pieces of 2x4 along the wall here, just to give you a visual of where my studs are. So do that and then lay out your barbells. And this should help you make the determination, do you want to hang by the shaft or by the sleeves? So if you're going to hang by the shaft, at least with most barbells, unless you're using like an axle bar or something, you're just going to have to build this. And they'll go on the 2x4 and the shaft will just rest in there. Now, if you're going to be hanging an axle bar or if you're going to be hanging by the sleeves, just add a block and it'll rest right there. All right, let's start building. All right, step number 2. Now we're going to cut the 2 2x4s to be whatever length you just determined back in step 1. All right, next step. Since I'm going to be going all the way down to the floor with my design, but I have baseboards to deal with, I'm going to be cutting out a little notch at the bottom of each 2x4. All right, so to cut out this notch for the baseboard, I'm going to set my depth stop, which is right here. So I flip this up, and then there's a set screw right here, so I can turn it, and it will adjust how far this is allowed to go down. All right, so to determine how far I'm going to set the depth stopper, I'm going to take an identical piece of baseboard, I know it's cheating, and I'm going to line it up with the 2x4 and then just mark it with a pencil. Once I've done that, I can flip this over, and now with the depth stopper engaged, I can turn this screw, and I want to make sure that the tip of the blade just kisses right past the line I just made right here. All right, that looks perfect. So I'm going to lock in this screw, and now we should be good to go. Okay, so now I'm going to take this guy, line it up at the edge. Okay, so I'm going to notch from here to the end. Let's see if it fits. Perfect. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other 2x4. All right, next step. Now this is completely optional. In fact, I just thought of it. I'm going to add a 45-degree angle cut on the ends of both of these long 2x4s just to make it a little prettier. All right, next step. Now we're going to cut the blocks that the barbell will rest on. And you'll need these whether you're hanging it on the sleeves or you're hanging it on the shaft. So we're going to cut a whole bunch of these. So to start, take a scrap piece of 2x4 and we're going to make a 45-degree angle cut on the end. All right, now we're going to take that piece we just made and we're going to set that off to the side for a second. Then we're going to take our piece, our work piece, right, and we're going to cut another 45-degree angle on this end. All right, now we're going to take the piece, that little scrap piece, and we're going to make sure that's flipped upside down so that it looks like this, right? We're going to clamp this so that we get uniform pieces and we can just lather, rinse, repeat and make a whole bunch of them. So what we want is we want to cut 2.5 inches, another 45-degree angle cut, 2.5 inches back here, okay? So go ahead and mark off 2.5 inches. Okay, we got that marked off right there. It's 2.5 inches from this edge to right here. And we're going to line up our blade so that it cuts right on this side of that line. Okay, and when you got it lined up, we're going to take this piece and we're going to clamp it to the miter saw. Okay, and now we can begin making 45-degree angle cuts. Just don't touch this piece we just clamped because it allows us to do repeatable cuts over and over. And I'm going to make about 12 of these things. All right, next step. Now, if you look at this edge, it's quite sharp, okay? So eventually this is gonna chip or split or whatever because the barbell is gonna keep hitting it. So we wanna dull this sharp edge. So to do so, I'm gonna make a 90-degree angle cut on one of the sides here. So just chop off about 1/8 of an inch off this front edge here. So to do that, I'm gonna take this little cheater piece that we just used and I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna put it over here. And then we're gonna position this piece so that I'm gonna cut off using a 90-degree cut, just 1/8 of an inch right off that front, okay? So we're gonna line up our blade. Okay, and now we'll clamp this guy in place. And now all those pieces, just make sure this edge is flush with that cheater piece and you'll have the same amount cut off every time. All right, now let's cut. All right, you see that? It's dulled now. So we're gonna do this to all those pieces we just made. All right, next step. Now again, this step is just if you're gonna be hanging the barbells on the sleeves or if you're hanging something thicker like an axle bar, okay? So what we want is with this block oriented so that that edge we just trimmed off is pointed upwards, we wanna go the distance from this edge here to this edge, which should be about 2.5 inches. So you want it perfectly aligned so that it's like that there, and on the bottom, it's aligned too, okay? So once you get that dialed in, we're gonna clamp that cheater board, but this time with that 90-degree cut against it so we can make a whole bunch of repeatable cuts to make a whole bunch of these. So I made 12 of these, so I need 12 of these. All right, next step. Now that you're done making these pieces, and if you need them, you're done making these pieces, we're gonna go ahead and glue them together. And when you do, just make sure that that edge that we trimmed off is pointed upwards like this. So glue them, clamp them, and let them dry. All right, the glue is now dry, and they came out looking fantastic. So now what we're gonna do is a little light sanding on all these pieces and on the two 2x4s back here to prevent splinters and to get rid of some of the cosmetic imperfections. All right, let's do this. All right, next step. Now we're gonna drill a hole here and a hole here. And the reason being is I'm gonna be using 4-inch long lag screws to affix these blocks to the long pieces of 2x4. And I want the heads of these lag screws to be recessed in the wood. Okay, so I don't want them sticking out. So I'm gonna use a 1/2-inch Forstner bit to accommodate that, okay? And you can see I drew lines along this edge and at this point, and I'm just bisecting those two lines. And that's where I'm gonna drill. And I'm drilling 3/4 inches from the edge and 3/4 inches from the edge. So let's use our 1/2-inch Forstner bit to do this. All right, now repeat this for all the other blocks. All right, next step. Now I've laid out all the blocks along one of my 2x4s, and I did so using a 3.5-inch long piece of 2x4. So they're all spaced out exactly 3.5 inches, okay? Now, the reason I'm doing this now is because we're gonna use 2 7/8 inch long lag screws, and I wanna find the best position to put those, because in the next step, we're gonna use a Forstner bit again, and I'm gonna drill a little hole so that these heads are recessed, okay? So that's why we gotta do this now. So, when determining where we're gonna put the lag screws, make sure that your drill fits in between them. Otherwise, it's gonna be hard to mount this. Unless, of course, you mount it first and put on the block second. So, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna find a good position where to do this. There we go. My drill will fit there now, real easily. And it should be super easy down on the ends. All right, next up, now I'm gonna be using a 5/8 inch Forstner bit to have a little recessed hole so that the heads of these lag screws won't stick out, okay? And these will be the lag screws that go into the studs. So I'm gonna do 3 per 2x4. All right, next step. Now we're gonna attach the blocks to the 2x4. And I've already pre-drilled so that the wood doesn't split, okay? And I'm gonna be using 4-inch long lag screws, and make sure that you make use of that 3.5-inch long spacer block so that everything's evenly spaced if that's what you're after. Now I've already clamped together both 2x4s because we wanna make sure as we're putting these blocks on that they are aligned perfectly so that your barbells are level, okay? Now, let's do this. Oh, one more thing. I'm not gonna be gluing these on. And the reason, well, if these ever become damaged, I wanna just be able to pop one off by unscrewing it and put a new one on, okay? So, no glue, just screws. All right, the first two are right there. They're perfectly aligned and it's perfect. Okay, so now I'm gonna take the rest of the blocks and just repeat all the way down. Now, I only made enough for 6 barbells, but I have the space for 12 barbells. So I'm not gonna be going all the way down. I have room to grow as my barbell collection grows. All right, let's do this. All right, all done with that, and now we're gonna paint. All right, the paint is now dry, and they came out looking fantastic. All right, so now we're ready to hang them to our studs. And I'm gonna be using 2 7/8 inch long lag screws. All right, DIY barbell rack, a great addition to any home gym. Now for more details on this project, please visit DIYfitnessclub.com. And if you need any of the supplies needed to make today's project, please consider shopping for those products via the links down in the video description below. Shopping via these links costs you nothing extra, and it helps support the channel. All right, that does it for this project, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next project. So, be sure to subscribe to the channel to be alerted the moment the next project drops.